A mistake is an action or judgment that is misguided or wrong. It can be as simple as turning right instead of left at an intersection. On the other hand, a mistake can lead to the early demise of 1,500 people, all because those in charge ignored warnings of icebergs in their area so they could get to their destination a little quicker. Governments make errors every day, some more substantial than others. The Bay of Pigs, the Iran-Contra affair, and the 18th Amendment are just a few of the many blunders that the US government made in just the 20th century. People are also known to make a miscalculation or two in their lifetime. These can be as minor as using bleach on a load of color laundry, or these can be so disastrous that an individual can single-handedly almost wipe out an endangered species, like Johnny Cash did in 1965 when his camper supposedly caught fire, causing 500 acres of forest to be burned while destroying the lives of 49 California condors. Cash's nephew, who was with him at the time, states that Cash started a fire to keep warm, but due to his intoxicated state, he didn't notice the fire getting out of control. As we all know, businesses are also known to make disastrous decisions. Ford lost $350 million in the late 1950s when they tried to create a new brand of vehicles under the name Edsel. Blockbuster could have purchased Netflix for $50 million in 2000, but they didn't do it. In 1985, Coca-Cola decided they needed to change the formula for Coke, with disastrous results. Even legendary tech companies like Apple, Microsoft, and even Nintendo made mistakes over their lifetimes. In this video, we will take a quick look at some of the biggest mistakes that Nintendo has made over the last 133 years. So without any further ado, and in no particular order, let's take a look at the biggest blunders in Nintendo's long and storied history. Nintendo is a video game company that is headquartered in Kyoto, Japan. When founded in 1889 by Fusajiro Yamauchi, Nintendo originally produced handmade Hanafuda playing cards. Hanafuda cards are small cards that come in a deck of 48 cards and are used to play a variety of games. By the end of the 1920s, Nintendo was the largest playing card business in Japan. Nintendo managed to survive the economic downturn during World War II, and by the 50s, they became the first company to mass produce plastic playing cards in Japan. After partnering with the Walt Disney Company to feature its characters on playing cards, Nintendo went public in 1962. In the 70s, Nintendo began making tabletop games like chess and mahjong. They also ventured into toys, with their first toy, the Beam Gun, being introduced in 1970. Nintendo made a version of the Beam Gun to work with the Magnavox Odyssey, marking their first venture into video game equipment. However, it wasn't until the 80s that Nintendo began making its own video games and video game hardware. The Game & Watch was released in 1980, with over 40 million units sold worldwide. In 1983, Nintendo released the Famicom to the Japanese market. The Famicom was known as the Nintendo Entertainment System to North America and Europe, where it was released in 1985 and 1986 respectively. This is where the Nintendo we all know and love was born. Over the next 43 years, Nintendo sold over 800 million video game consoles and over 5 billion video games. Nintendo has been undeniably successful over the last 5 decades, but there have been some missteps. After spending 4 years developing the Virtual Boy and building a dedicated manufacturing plant in China, Nintendo released it to the masses in the summer of 1995. Nintendo expected the Virtual Boy to sell 3 million units before March of 1996. However, by March of 1996, Nintendo had discontinued the Virtual Boy due to extremely low sales and poor reviews. Reviews at the time found that the 3D features were just a gimmick that didn't add anything to the gameplay, and that the console was rather uncomfortable to play. It was also criticized for being antisocial in the fact that it was only one player as compared to the Super Nintendo, which promoted multiplayer gaming. Players of the Virtual Boy frequently complained of dizziness, nausea, and headaches while playing. Articles published at the time said that the Virtual Boy could cause long-term brain damage if played too much. In total, Nintendo only sold 770,000 Virtual Boy consoles, and undoubtedly lost millions of dollars due to this mistake. Just 3 months after the cancellation of the Virtual Boy, Nintendo released its 5th generation home video game console, the Nintendo 64. This was the first new console released by Nintendo since 1990 when they released the Super Nintendo, and times had changed. Not only did the 64 have to compete with the Sega Saturn, but Sony had entered the video game console market 18 months earlier with its smash hit, the PlayStation. Both the Saturn and the PlayStation utilized compact discs for game storage, while Nintendo decided to use ROM cartridges instead of a CD-ROM. While this may not seem like that big of a deal, it was detrimental to the Nintendo 64. You see, a standard CD can hold up to 700 megabytes of data, giving developers at the time tons of room to make bigger and better games. The initial cartridge for the Nintendo 64 could hold up to 12 megabytes. That's 58 times less than a CD for the PlayStation or Saturn. Not only could the 64's cartridge hold less, but it was also more expensive. New games on the PlayStation usually cost $50, while Super Mario 64 and other titles of the 64 cost $70. Cost and size restrictions kept developers from putting their games on the Nintendo 64, resulting in only 388 games being officially released for the Nintendo 64, compared to over 7,000 titles for the PlayStation. By the time the 64 was discontinued in 2002, it had only sold 33 million consoles, while the PlayStation had sold over 100 million. Choosing a cartridge over a CD for game storage was a blunder that Nintendo learned from. Kinda. After the slow sales of both the Nintendo 64 and the GameCube, Nintendo bounced back with its hit, the Wii, selling over 100 million consoles. The Wii was underpowered compared to its competition at the time, which brought in a new audience of more casual gamers. When the Wii U launched in 2012, it was also underpowered, just like the Wii was, and it kept the Wii name. This made potential customers think that the Wii U was just a Wii HD of sorts, since it was called the Wii, still used the Wii controller, and played Wii games. The Wii U featured a new gamepad that was actually pretty cool, but the battery life was anemic and would constantly need to be charged. Due to the Wii U being underpowered, it pushed many third-party developers away, and with the release of the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 in 2013, most hardcore gamers stayed away from the Wii U. The Wii U only sold 13 million consoles, making it the worst-selling home console that Nintendo has ever made, unless you include the Virtual Boy in those statistics. Luckily, Nintendo learned from its mistakes on the Wii U and released the Nintendo Switch in 2017, which has been a huge success. So what do you think? What was Nintendo's biggest mistake? I might make a part 2 on this topic, so leave me a comment. And until next time, thank you very much for watching this video here at the Bit Garage.